Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a tag video. I was tagged by the wonderful Mercy over at Mercy's Bookish Musings to do the books to read in pairs tag that was created by Jen Campbell. And I'm excited to do this. I was watching her video and kind of mentally thinking of the books that I would kind of put together as pairs, and so I was really excited when she tagged me because I do have some. I don't have a ton. I have 4 pairs, and one of them is kind of a cheat because it's sort of a pair but more of a read a book with any book like this other example, so we'll get to that one. The first one is the one that immediately came to mind when I thought of this tag, because this is a book that I already think you should these two should be read together. And that is going to be, this is a story of a happy marriage by Ann Patchett, and then her new book, Commonwealth. So these two books I feel like should be read together for a couple of reasons, with reading this one first, definitely. So the book Commonwealth, which is this story about this family, it mostly follows Fanny, who is a baby at the beginning at her christening party, and then it kind of follows the blending of these two families throughout their lives and kind of how the children cope, how their lives are changed because of something that happens at the beginning of the book. And it's just a really fascinating story. But there is a character in this book that I feel like when you've read this one, this is a story of a happy marriage, which is a nonfiction book of kind of like essays and about Ann Patchett's life. I feel like when you've read this one, that certain characters in this, definitely you can see where they came from, especially one of the dads in this book. You can definitely see how her relationship with her dad and who her dad was as a person influenced the dad in this book. So I just think that these make a great pair, because I felt personally like I got a lot more out of Commonwealth having read This Is a Story of a Happy Marriage, because it just felt like it gave it even more depth. So I definitely think these should be read together. So the next pair also has an Ann Patchett book, because I can't help myself, and no shame there, and it is State of Wonder, which is one of my favorite Ann Patchett books. And this is a book that is set in the Amazon, or mostly in the Amazon. This woman goes looking for her colleague who is supposedly dead, and she's going to bring his body back for his family. And she ventures into this Amazon region where this scientist that her company's kind of funding the research is doing fertility research, and she gets so much more than she bargains for. It is an incredible story. It's just the atmosphere when you get to the Amazon, and the city before we get to the Amazon is so beautiful, and it just made me really feel like I was in that world. And so I actually paired this one with another nonfiction that's called Tales of a Shaman's Apprentice. I read this in college when I took I'm not sure, it was like a natural science, don't know I can say that word, natural science class or something like that. And it is this amazing book about this man who goes into the Amazon as the apprentice of a shaman to learn about herbal remedies, about all these just natural plants that are used for different medicinal purposes and all kinds of other purposes. And it's just a really fascinating book. It's one of those things that I would have never picked up on my own, but I remember even in the class just really being enthralled by this book. And I remember when I later read State of Wonder, I kept thinking about parts of this book and parts of just the information that was given in this book, and I still think about it some today too. So I feel like these go really well together, because again, this book adds depth to this one. So the next pair, there's no Ann Patchett, there's no nonfiction, so a little departure from the theme so far. This is a set of books that I actually kind of heard about in tandem. I remember I don't remember exactly how, but I know that I picked them up because of each other and then ended up really loving them individually. I hadn't read either of them at the point that I picked the other one up, so I don't know how that works. But this one is called Scent of Triumph. I have talked about it a lot. It is set in the World War II, but it's not really a war novel. It is a story about this incredible strong woman who is basically a perfume designer, and it's about how she has to leave her family or her child behind during the war. And you get the little snippets of him and what's going on, and you get little snippets of the actual war, but the focus itself is more on her and how she is coping and what she's doing to support herself, and just her generally how strong and amazing of a woman she is. And you also get these beautiful just notes or it's like her perfume notes that are at the beginning of each chapter, where it gives you some little snippet about a particular kind of fragrance note, and it's really fascinating, and I think it really adds to the story because they relate to the chapter that follows them, and it's in a very kind of subtle way. This was really well researched. Jan Moran has worked in the perfume industry, and she's actually written nonfiction books about perfume. So she's very knowledgeable, and it shows, and it's weaved in beautifully. And then the book that I'm pairing it with is The Perfume Collector. So The Perfume Collector is a book that's this woman who finds out one day that she has inherited all this money from someone she does not know at all, and we kind of go back in time to see how this woman, you know, came to this point, how she became this perfume heir or empress, basically, how she has this whole empire of perfume. And it is beautiful and fascinating, and just, you get, again, enveloped in that world of perfume, and there's so much detail, and it was just such a wonderful, charming story. And I felt like both of these, they both have really wonderful, strong female leads, but they also have just so much interesting perfume knowledge. When I finished reading these, I just was like wanting to know so much more about perfume. So I think that reading them back to back definitely just brings you into this whole world of perfume, and you just want to stay there. So the last pair, I pretty much couldn't get out of this video without including something Titanic related, and I gotta talk about The Midnight Watch. So this book is something I have raved about. It is a Titanic fiction book, which in and of itself is, it's hard to find a Titanic fiction book that has a good story. I don't mean to bag on all the Titanic fiction, but so far what I have read has been bad and mostly just very romance heavy, and with, you know, all of the she's in love with two men and which one will survive kind of situations, or, you know, star-crossed lovers across class levels and all of that. This is not that at all. This is an incredible story that isn't actually set on the Titanic. It's set on the Californian, which is the ship that was supposedly closest to the Titanic when it sank but did not come to her rescue. And then it's set in New York after the sinking of the Titanic, in the kind of media frenzy, and it is a incredible story about people, about, you know, hard decisions, and, you know, what it must have been like to know that you had been so close, and then, you know, all these tiny little factors, and you didn't go to the rescue of these people because you just didn't know. And then sort of this incredible story about this man who is a journalist, and what lengths journalists used to go to get the best and the deepest and the truest stories. And it was just wonderful. Like, I rave about this book for a reason, and if you at all have interest in the Titanic, pick it up. And so what I'm going to pair it with, I just picked one off of my shelf. So this is a nonfiction book about the Titanic. And I think any kind of Titanic book, so if you were at all into Titanic history, you know, going from a nonfiction Titanic book and then picking this up is going to be a great transition, or reading this and then wanting to know more about the actual Titanic story, pick up a nonfiction about the Titanic. I think they go hand in hand, because I think that this one tells a beautiful story and really makes you think about the real world events and the consequences of, you know, the story of the Californian. And then to go and to read nonfiction Titanic history and to really understand what the consequences were is a really cool thing. So yeah, it doesn't have to be this one, though I do recommend this one. This is Facts About the Titanic, 1912. And it is a great, you know, Titanic book that has it's something you can dip in and out of, but it's also something you can read straight through. I read it straight through and found it fascinating. It's got different subjects. Things are divided into different subjects, and this is a book that I don't feel like has an agenda, where I see a lot of Titanic books that have agendas. They basically they pull all the facts and all the stories that point to a certain reason why something happened. I didn't feel like this one did that, which I think is important. So I love this tag, and I think it is really fun and something that maybe you don't think about right away, reading books in pairs, but I think that it can add something really wonderful when you do read two books together that are either on the same subject or that add depth to the book. So when you read a nonfiction book about something that a fiction story is related to, I think that it can add a lot to the story and to your reading experience and your knowledge. So I think it's a really cool concept. I will be tagging some people. I'll go ahead and tag them down below, and probably on Twitter as well, because I'll have to look and see who's done this one. But thank you so much, Mercy, for tagging me, and thank you, Jen, for creating this. It was a really fun tag to do, and I hope that a lot of people do this as well, because I can always use some other books to read in pairs to enhance my reading experience. So yeah, I hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye!